Okay, y'all. So I got a call from an investigator. Y'all know I have been in a lot of abusive relationships. First of all, when I was 18, I was in a relationship with a man named AC Brandon Broaders. He was in the United States military, and he abused me. From that tender age of 18 years old. I've been being abused. So a lot of people need to really just hear my story before you are so quick to judge me. It did not stop there. I got married at a very young age. I got married at 22 years of age. And I had an abusive relationship before that. I was in a relationship with a man named Aaron. And I was 21 right before I got married, 2021, and I have this cut right there on my arm. My meat was hanging out of my arm. Y'all don't even want to cry because like I bury this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't even really think about it. I never really really looked back on all that I went through as a young woman. I had to go to the emergency room and they cut off my meat that was hanging out of my arm. And when I was 22 years old, I got married. And my husband was financially abusing me. And thank God I got some money, and I moved to the Woodlands in Magnolia, Texas, and I lived out there by myself. And I lived in Greenspoint, Texas by myself for a little while, and then I moved to Magnolia, Texas. And I lived by myself. I was very fortunate. My mother left me an inheritance, and I lived on my own. I worked 2 jobs. I tried to take care of my family. I did everything. I took care of my friends. I had a really big heart, and I ended up getting in a relationship with a guy named Kunta, a black guy, and he was just like financially using me and abusing me financially because really he would help out, but I was basically taking care of him. And right around the time where he got a job and he could help me out, he ended up going to prison for theft and for assault because he stole something from a store and then tried to get away, and one of the officers claimed that he assaulted them. So I had a lot of friends in my life who just pretty much came around because of the things that I had, the material things that I had from my mother. And it was hard for me because after my mom's funeral, nobody called. Nobody called to check on me. Nobody ever said, Andrea, how are you doing? I already had to grow up through my teenage years, like adolescence to teenage years in the streets without my mother. Watched my mother get abused. I watched my mother work and do everything on her own without a man. My mother was married 4 times during my childhood. And at a very young age, I tried to turn to friends, and talk to them about it. And I ended up falling out with all of my friends and everything because I had such a hard upbringing and I didn't have anybody who was willing to want to be around somebody who just had so much negativity going on in their life. And so, I had a really hard time, even in school, from kindergarten, just the very beginning stages of going to school. And that really messed up my education a lot, because I would go to school with bruises all over my body from my stepfather, Cedric Brown. And I've never gotten an apology, and I don't think he even cares what he did to me just as a little girl and how badly it affected me. So I could not concentrate on my schoolwork. I did not play with the other kids. I didn't want to go home. I was afraid to go home. And I was afraid to go to school and that someone would notice the marks on my body. And so all I could think about when I was in class was how afraid I was to go home, that I didn't want Cedric Brown or my mother abusing me. And it mostly was Cedric Brown. And my mother did abuse me sometimes unnecessarily. And when I got older, she did apologize, so it meant a lot to me. But I have never gotten an apology from Cedric Brown. And I reported it to my counselor, Mrs. Peterson. I believe it was Avondale Elementary School in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was very afraid because my little sister and I were both being abused by Cedric Brown. And I would take up for her and I would get it the hardest. And so when I tried to, well, I did report it to Miss Peterson, the counselor, and she did her job and contacted the social workers. But the social workers didn't really want to deal with the case. So they tried to intimidate me, and when they came to speak to us at the home, and they threatened to split me up from my sisters, Larissa and Shakina, if I continued to tell that Cedric was abusing me inside of the home. So being that I loved my sisters, I right then and there I told the social worker, I said no. I said I don't want to be split up from my sisters. So she was like, "You're not going to tell anybody else that he was abusing you, are you?" And then I said no. So he continued to abuse us up until about the fifth grade. You know, it calmed down a lot, but you know, it was because my mother started leaving him, and my mother left him and came back, and so he really stopped putting his hands on us. But by that time he stole all of the furniture and everything out of our home. He left us in the house that he claimed that he was paying the bills, and left my mother with all of the debt. So all I have seen was people mistreat us and abuse us. And James Devon Harris pulled a gun on me inside of Beverly Raoul's home for no reason. And James knows about my channel. I've talked to James on the phone. I told y'all I got a call from James Devon Harris, and I told y'all it did not go well. I showed the officers a video of James pretty much mistreating me at his house. Y'all know I'm pregnant, and I told James about everything they did to me in the jail. And it was like after I told him what they did to me in the jail and that I didn't have anybody, and then I was being taken advantage of just to have a place to stay and a roof over my head, all of a sudden it's like he thought that meant that he could mistreat me too, and started trying to involve other women. And I packed up my suitcase to leave. The video is actually on my channel. I can go on ahead and post the link of the video underneath this description box, just so y'all can see that I didn't do anything. I was asking James if I could buy a mattress to move into our new apartment that we were moving into together, that I found for us. And I told him, you know, my health situation, that I'm pregnant and I have a high risk pregnancy. And I said, I'm tired of you and your family disrespecting me. And I went to go and get my suitcase, and he came in the room. I said some words that I'm leaving, you know, he's mistreating me, and he came in there in my face and arguing with me. And, you know, we were having a verbal disagreement, but it wasn't that bad. And he picked up a gun and cocked it and came to me and basically was threatening to shoot me during this entire thing. And I got it on camera, and I screamed and called the police from outside. The police saw the video and made the call to charge James with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. My finger was bleeding. I don't know how my finger started bleeding. It could have been from me snatching up my suitcase and getting the hell up out of there. But to me, it felt like James was trying to pull a gun on me because I have shot a gun before in self-defense. And I feel like he was just trying to pull a gun just to say that he was hard, or just trying to like get some street credibility off of my situation with me and my child's father, being that I did shoot a gun, but I'm a woman and I'm pregnant and I'm with child, and someone was abusing me. I was not hitting James Devon Harris. I was not screaming at James Devon Harris. I was no threat to James Devon Harris. He came inside of the bedroom where I was packing my suitcase, locked the door, pulled out a gun, cocked it, and came and stood in my face. If I was such a threat, why would you come into the room with me and lock the door? Why would you lock yourself in a room with somebody? And if I was such a threat, why didn't he call 911 after he pulled the gun on me? If you pull a gun on somebody, don't you think you'll call and report them to the police if you had such a reason to pull a gun on them? Well, this is why I didn't even have to try to plead my cause. I showed the police officers the video, and no, they were not white. It was 4 black officers that showed up and made the call. Then they called another officer, a Hispanic officer, and another officer to the scene, and they were like sergeants or whatever, and they made the call. He tried to lie about what took place, and I never said that he hit me, but I did look up the charge, and it would be considered brandishing. Brandishing is basically when you use a weapon and you intimidate someone to where you would actually make them feel like you would shoot them or harm them when they are not a threat to you. And I was not a threat to James Devon Harris, and I do want him to be charged. And James, I'm sorry, I know you might be watching this video, and I know we talked, but the reason why I want you to be charged, James Devon Harris, is because I am tired of people abusing black women and then lying and saying that we're the aggressor. I was not the aggressor. I did not do anything for you to pull that gun on me, and I get really tired of people abusing African American women and then turning around and saying that she was the aggressor. We are naturally strong, we are naturally bold, but we are the sweetest creatures on the earth when you do right by us. So for you to lie and make it seem like a 5'5" female that's with child with a baby and bleeding for this long period of time was a threat to you, and I never not once have touched you. I have never not once put my hands on you. Do you know how it feels for somebody to be attacking you in your house? Do you know how it feels for somebody to be abusing you since a child? I have never put my hands on you, James Devon Harris. What reason did you have to pull out that gun on me? It just shows me that you don't have no respect for me. You don't have no respect for black women. And you think it's a game that I shot my child's father. You don't think that I had a right to pull out that gun on him and protect myself. So you pulled that gun out on me, which it was sexist. It was sexist. You pulled that gun on me because I've shot a gun before. And because I pulled out a gun on a man that was hurting me. And what you did was sexist. And I'm not coming to live with you down there. And if they don't charge you, that's fine. But I'm not coming down there to testify against you. Just to let you know, I already told the detectives that I don't have time for that shit. I'm already dealing with stuff about my pregnancy. And I got a case against the United States government already about my child's father, who is a white Caucasian male. And he was raping me. And that's why I'm bleeding in this pregnancy. So I'm hoping that my baby survives. I don't got time for James Devon Harris. Now, if the officers, first of all, that were on the scene made the call, they saw a video. This is what I told the investigator. He said, well, if he got probation, would you be happy? I said, my intentions are not to hurt him. I said, but the reason why I would like for James Devon Harris to at least get probation is because he's in the house pulling out a gun to intimidate people inside of the home to do what they want him to do, and they're not doing anything to him. I said, if you want somebody who's walking around pulling out guns on pregnant women, first of all, I wanted to document that. Yes, I'm pregnant. I've been pregnant with this baby for a long time, and I have not had this baby yet, so I can't prove that James actually pulled the gun out on me while I was pregnant other than showing the baby's heart rate and stuff like that. He pulled out a gun on a pregnant female just because he wanted to retaliate on some sexist shit because he knew that I pulled a gun out on my baby daddy and tried to pretend like he really supported me but tried to sabotage me this whole time. And this is something that a lot of men do. I've had to deal with this with a lot of men where they feel like they have to try to intimidate you and, do things like that. It's like, if I already just came out of an abusive relationship, then that intimidation is not going to work. And he cocked the gun on me as if he was going to shoot me. He does not know when to pull out a firearm and when not to pull out a firearm. First of all, I have owned 2 380s. I've owned shotgun. I never had to shoot a gun, and nobody could ever tell you that I pulled a gun out on them unless they were hurting me. So for James Devon Harris to pull out a gun on me and I was not hurting him, he does not need to own a firearm. I can go and purchase firearms. I can go and buy firearms from anywhere that I want. But I don't have one. But my thing is, I have the right to. I don't believe, because I know when and when not to use a gun. I have never shot a gun before someone was hurting me. Some people could say, oh, it was excessive force, but let me just tell you something. When it comes to somebody abusing my child, there is no such thing as excessive force. And the fact that I'm pregnant and bleeding on top of that and being denied medical care shows that you guys know that I had a right to protect myself. That's why I'm being denied the medical care in the first place. Another thing is that we don't need black men like James walking around with guns, giving all the rest of the black people a bad name in the United States. Look at all of the gun violence of people who have been killed and murdered because people were being senseless with weapons and they didn't even have a reason to pull the gun. Look at how many police officers are out here shooting people, and then we got black people like James pulling out guns for no reason. So my thing is, when it comes to the gun laws right now, what they're trying to make it seem like in the media is that having a gun is bad. First of all, even God told me that sometimes people need their guns to protect themselves. It's a big bad world, and sometimes you're gonna need your firearm. So we don't need people like James out here pulling out their firearm on pregnant women. We don't need that. If you do not know that your gun is to protect yourself, your gun is not to intimidate people to do what you want, to be quiet. You can't pull out your gun and then come and intimidate somebody and say, hey, if you don't do what I want you to do, if you don't shut up. And what I said on the video, I'm going to post the video. And what I said on the video, I said, I helped you get that apartment. But I helped you get that apartment. And I turned around and started packing up my stuff. And when I turned around, he had the gun out. Why would you pull out a gun on somebody who have their back turned towards you, that's packing up their suitcase? See, it's too many black men that's running around thinking that they hard. They thinking that they hard because they got a gun. That don't make you a man. And it really don't make you no gangster, because real gangsters have laws. I don't know if you heard about the laws that they have. You don't just go pulling out guns on people for no fucking reason. You know what I'm saying? And then you do not try to hurt somebody who had to use one. That's another thing that we need to stop doing in this society. If somebody has had to use a gun, do not outcast those people. If somebody was hurting them, they were protecting themselves. Somebody was hurting them. Somebody was hurting their children. You don't keep bullying them because they had to do what they had to do to survive. You don't do that. And I'm not going to let anybody hurt me. I don't have to let a man slash my face before I pull out a gun. Once you start attacking me, anything can happen from there. The same week that they incarcerated me, I got four articles. One woman's boyfriend picked up a hammer and hit her in the head with it. Killed her. Another woman's child's father took the wheel of the car, ran her off the road, killed her, and got out of the car and ran and left the scene. Another man chased his girlfriend out in the streets just like my baby daddy did and murdered her in front of the entire neighborhood in Houston, Texas. And I brought those articles with me to court when Judge Patty Maginnis was trying to charge me with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and child negligence, dispersing a weapon in a public place where he was attacking me. For us. And they charged me with something else. He's gonna make them pay. So no. I'm sorry, James Devon Harris. I'm doing this because you're a danger. And if they let you get off without probation, I hope you don't go pulling out a gun on another woman that didn't do nothing to you. Because that might be another woman that ended up dead. For no reason. And I could have been that woman ending up dead in Beverly Raoul's home, and I am pregnant. And they done did all this to me and this baby already. So for him to have shot us in that room, my story could have never been heard. I had not made this YouTube channel yet. That means nobody would have found out about the KKK starving us. Nobody would have found out about my white baby daddy abusing us. Nobody would have found out that they took my boy from me. Nobody would have found out that people been raping me, beating me, and I'm pregnant. And he would have just shot us. And my soul just would have been crying out from the grave, asking the Lord, when shall you avenge me? So if the state of Texas want to let James Devon Harris off on that charge, that's fine.